Money laundering is basically financial wizardry for criminals. If you're a drug lord, corrupt politician, or scammer swimming in dirty cash, you can't just waltz into a bank and dump it all in. So instead, criminals find creative ways to clean their money, by filtering it through businesses until it looks squeaky clean. But some money launderers get a little too creative. So here are some of the craziest real-life money laundering cases ever. The Russian laundromat. Most money laundering schemes are shady and secretive. This one, it got a stamp of approval from actual judges. In the 2010s, an operation called the Russian laundromat washed over $20 billion out of Russia. But why were these Russians yeeting all this cash out of their country? Because Russia had strict capital controls. The government said, "Hey, all you rich, corrupt citizens of ours, please stop yeeting money over the border." Also, the West kept slapping Russia with sanctions, and global banks started actually caring about money laundering. So it became nearly impossible to sneak large sums of money out of the country. The key word, nearly. Because despite all these rules, people still found a way. The scheme worked like this. Let's say we have two people, Boris and Patricia. Boris borrows $1 million from Patricia, but Patricia's like, Boris looks like the kind of guy who invests in crypto based on Andrew Tate's advice. I need someone else to sign with him. This is where Ivan comes into the picture. Ivan is in Russia, and he has loads of money. He says to Patricia, "Sweet baby girl Patricia, if Boris is a stupid idiot, I pay back your million." Then, of course, for whatever reason, Boris can't pay back the money. So then Patricia turns to Ivan and says, "Hey bestie, remember when you said you'd cover for Boris?" So they take the case to a Moldovan judge who makes a ruling that Ivan must send money to Patricia. And that's how Ivan sends the money out of Russia. And because it's approved by a judge, banks see the paperwork and go, "Oh wow, a legal dispute, so official, we love due process," and let the money pass without question. But here's the trick. The loan was fake. Everyone, Boris, Ivan and Patricia, was in on it. 1 year, at its peak, $8 billion passed through a single Moldovan bank, which was like twice the size of the country's entire economy at the time. But by the time investigators caught on, most of the money had already disappeared. The Vatican's dirty laundry. This is the story of Banco Ambrosiano, one of Italy's biggest banks in the 1970s and 80s. And the man running it? Roberto Calvi, a banker with two very interesting connections. The Vatican Bank, they literally owned part of his bank, and the Sicilian Mafia. They had financial needs. And because of his connection with the Vatican, Roberto earned the title of God's banker. Spoiler, he was not doing God's best work. But why would the Vatican get mixed up with the Mafia? Well, they both needed something. The Vatican wanted to secretly move money around the world, to fund churches, fight communism, and support political parties. But doing that openly? Not a great look. Meanwhile, the Mafia had a different problem. They had way too much illegal money that needed laundering. That's when Roberto Calvi looked at the situation and found a solution. Here's how his scheme worked. The Mafia wants to move illegal money without looking sus. So they ask Roberto for a favor. Roberto's like, "Easy, I'll set up some fake companies in Panama and the Bahamas." Then Roberto's bank sends those companies huge loans. Are they real loans? Absolutely not. No one's paying them back. But to make the whole thing look legit, the Vatican Bank steps in and goes, "Don't worry, we vouch for this loan. God's watching, and he's cool with it." And because the Vatican is its own country, the bank wasn't really subject to normal Italian rules and investigations. So the money flowed from Roberto's bank to fake companies, approved by the Vatican, then out into the world, as clean as a freshly baptized baby's bottom. This worked for years, until 1982, when Banco Ambrosiano suddenly went kaboom, and $1.2 billion vanished. Investigators started poking around, and then Roberto Calvi was found in London, under a bridge, with bricks in his pockets. The official ruling, he did it himself. The unofficial ruling, well, if you lost $1.2 billion in potentially mafia money, I think someone would get a bit angry. When investigators dug into the missing money, guess whose fingerprints showed up all over the paper trail? The Vatican Bank. And what did the church do? They didn't confess. They didn't apologize, they just quietly paid $200 million to the bank's creditors. Not as an admission of guilt, just a very generous donation. The cartel horse farm. Most ranchers are into, horses. And from the outside, Jose Trevino Morales looked like your typical cowboy. Boots, belt buckle, living the yeehaw life on a ranch in Oklahoma. Except this cowboy was pulling up to horse auctions like, "Howdy partners, I'll take that one for $875,000 in cash." Yeah, like $900K for one horse. Meanwhile, oil tycoons and hedge fund bros were getting outbid by a dude who looked like he fixed fences for a living. But Jose wasn't just a rancher. He was the money guy for Los Zetas, a Mexican cartel known for things like violence, terror, and apparently elite horse racing. Here's how the scam worked. Buy expensive racehorses with cartel money, enter them in races, bet on them, make them win, and then sell them for big profits. Boom. Dirty drug money becomes sparkling horse money. And it was working. The ranch looked squeaky clean and the money was flowing. But no matter how fast his horses ran, Jose couldn't outrun the FBI. In 2012, the feds rolled up like, "Yeehaw, mother trucker," and raided his whole operation. They seized 455 horses, luxury trailers, and private jets. And Jose, he got hit with 20 years in prison. Now that's all I've got time for today. Like this video if you learned something, subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!